That's where you sugar instead of.
Gosh, it's a real pleasure to be here this morning. I have to say, you guys are so chipper. So early in the morning. Normally there's only two things that will get me up this early. One is golf, and the other is fishing.
We try to put something extra in the coffee.
Oh, good, I hope so. Because getting up at 5:30 for me is a little difficult, but you know what, I'm so happy to be here. And, you know, I was a Rotarian for 14 years. I was a member of Belmont Rotary Club for 12 years, and then when I got elected to San Mateo City Council, of course they kicked me out, and they said, go to San Mateo, which I did. And then I found, after 2 years, my job responsibilities started increasing. And I apologize to Mike because I didn't get a bio to him, an updated one in time for him to change this, but I was actually Senior Director of Philanthropy when I left Notre Dame. I retired in June, and didn't plan to retire until this coming January, but my job was becoming so crazy, and I really wanted to focus time on being a good mayor. We get to do it once if you're lucky in your term, and maybe I'll have an opportunity a second time if I get reelected in November, but I really wanted to do it hands-on and enjoy the experience. So retirement has given me that opportunity to do that. And people keep saying, how do you like retirement? And I'm like, I haven't gotten to enjoy it yet. So I'm looking forward to getting past the election, to my time as mayor will end in December, and then to being able to, I'm getting married in December, and so then I'll focus a little bit on my new life. Also have a new grandchild, the first one that arrived on July 18th, and he's just wonderful, so it's been such a blessing in my life. But it did break my heart to have to leave Rotary, and I plan to rejoin. As soon as my term as mayor and the election are done, I'm back in my San Mateo Rotary Club. So basically, I just
We'll save some talk later right here.
Oh, you know what? I would love to come here, but you guys are up too early in the morning. I'm not a morning person. I'm so not a morning person. And you know, I was really moved. I came in late on this video, but one of the things I love being a Rotarian is it's given me these wonderful opportunities to do international trips. I've done 2 trips to Mazatlan, delivering wheelchairs, school supplies, and then 5 years ago I had the wonderful, incredible experience of going to Africa. And I was so...
What part of Africa?
We went to South Africa. So we were around Johannesburg, and we were in various different provinces, delivering wheelchairs, delivering uniforms to children, and that was just a life-changing experience. I have never seen such incredible poverty in my entire life. And yet I've never seen people with such a spirit of joy and appreciation. It was just amazing. But we were at a school helping fit children for uniforms, and so many of them had wounds. They were victims of AIDS. And I mean, it's just, what's happening in that country is just horrific. So I really think it's wonderful if you're going to take on this project. Anything we can do to help people there is really wonderful. So, I'm sorry, I kind of got off track, but I just thought that's such a wonderful project. So, you know, and I would say that my time as Rotary really helped me in my decision to get on council and to pursue that, because I think the whole community service and giving of yourself is really an important thing, and it's given me the opportunity, being on council, to really get out and do more to help people. So, I want to now start a little bit about Measure S. So I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to come and talk to you this morning about it. It's a really important measure that I hope you'll consider. You know, it's never popular as a politician to get up in front of voters and say, we want a new tax. But whether it's popular or not, in my heart I feel this is really the right thing for San Mateo at this point in time. And let's see, so. This is my first time doing the PowerPoint. Normally, I do a little talk and my city manager does the PowerPoint afterwards. So I'm going to try to do a little bit of both. So just a quick history to put this Measure S into context. Back in 2009, the San Mateo voters generously approved Measure L. And that was really a 0.25% sales tax that was going to help us close the budget deficit and provide essential services to our community during what many consider the worst economic downturn in half a century. And it succeeded, but not without really careful planning on the part of our city, without fiscal transparency and accountability. Our employees made significant sacrifices. They took cuts in salaries and benefits. We had to make departmental cuts. We weren't filling positions as they came vacant. This was especially critical for our police department that had some positions that weren't being filled. And there was deferred maintenance on a lot of capital projects. So Measure L positioned San Mateo for really strong recovery compared to a lot of other municipalities. And I'm really proud of how we have steadily restored our fiscal health. And we also now have 3 months of budget reserves. So if we go through this kind of thing again, we're going to be in a much better position financially. So people might say, well, then what is Measure S about? Well, to begin with, a lot of people are calling it an extension of Measure L, and it's really not. Measure L will sunset as it's supposed to in 2017. What we are asking is for that 0.25% sales tax to stay in place and instead be used for some totally different purposes. So you see here, the city of San Mateo has over $360 million worth of projects that don't have an identified funding source. And since 1990, the state has taken almost $50 million from San Mateo, and like many other cities, and that's to, fix their own budget deficit. But in the meantime, that's money we don't have to take care of our own community. So besides supporting some of the services that our citizens have said are important to them, like this Measure S will cover public safety, children's services. It'll also address some critical infrastructure needs that we have. So you can see we've got to repair our streets. We have roads that are in total disrepair, and a large part of this money is going to go to fix our failed streets. Flood facilities, we've got several, 1,200 homes in North Shoreview that are still in the flood zone, and we have pump stations there that need to be fixed. And the cost for just the flood improvements is about $24 million. The cost for a failed pump station is included in that, but what people don't realize is if our pump stations fail, that's the water that they get over the levees in a serious storm, and that water can back up. And once when our levees, our pump stations failed about 10 years ago, we had water backed up all the way to Amplet Road in San Mateo. So it doesn't just stay in the Shoreview area, it comes west and it impacts all of our neighborhoods. So one of the things people consistently ask council about too is, when are you going to fix my street? 17 miles of failed streets in San Mateo. And the cost for each failed street is about $1.5 million, which is why we are designating $35 million to fix failed streets. And it's 6 times more expensive to fix a failed street and let it go completely bad than to just maintain them. So our hope is that we're going to get to a point where all of our streets are fixed, and then we just maintain them over the years at a much reduced cost. So even with the improved economy, the grant funding that's awarded to our city, with partnerships we do with other agencies, at the end of the day, our budget simply does not and never will have enough money to do all these projects and improvements that are necessary to kind of maintain the services that our community tells us that they want. So some of the things that we are going to be covering, in addition, I talked a little bit about keeping teens off the streets. We do have a gang problem. People don't really realize that, but we need to up our patrols and our work with youth in the community. We have a great juvenile diversion program, but we need more money for that. We have homeless people on our streets. We get a lot of complaints about that. So we have a homeless task force, which we're funding, and partial funds coming from the county, but we need more dedicated sources of funding to get people out there, to helping the homeless get off the streets. So we'll be putting money towards that. Anti-gang programs, park and rec programs to keep our kids out of trouble. We have a wonderful PAL program that's doing amazing things. We want to up our police patrols to make our streets safer. Since realignment came into being 4 years ago, and with the passage of Prop 47, we've seen about a 57% increase in property crimes. Because now it's a misdemeanor. Some of these crimes are no longer felonies. So in San Mateo, we've seen such an uptick in auto thefts, in burglaries. So we need to really do more with our police and our public safety to address that. So over the years, the council's really looked at ways that we can fund some of these things, and what we really come to the realization is because there's no money, we came up with Measure S. And the reason we think that that's a good thing is because these are huge capital needs that basically we've been kicking the can down the road, not because anybody wants to, but because there's just not been the funding there. So now we found ourselves facing these major unfunded projects. And so what's the best way to address that? It's really kind of a matter of pay now or pay later for our council and our community. And I think this council really has had the courage to tackle this and take it on and say, okay, our community keeps telling us they want these things, how are we going to do it? So I support Measure S because I really believe that the time is now to take responsibility and create a dedicated funding source so that we can start these projects now and ensure our own safety now, protect the future viability of our city. And the reason I support a sales tax initiative versus some other form of taxation is because it's something that is shared by everybody and it doesn't put the burden on our already, I feel, sometimes overtaxed property owners. So in San Mateo, about 40% of the people who come in and out every day and use our services are people who don't live here. So by having a sales tax, people who come here to work, people who come here to eat, you know, we have fabulous restaurants downtown, we're known as a destination for that. They're going to share in the cost for repairing our streets and some of the services that they're using but not paying for. So to me, that's the best way for us to address how we're going to get the money to do these major infrastructure repairs. And San Mateo really, it's a wonderful community that people really want to live in. We have great parks, we have good schools, we have access to public transportation, we have a wonderful downtown, great shopping centers, and we're at the heart of the peninsula. So this really makes us an ideal and popular place for people to want to come and raise their families and to live. So, you know, for me, one of the reasons I wanted to run for re-election is I really want to ensure that for the future we have safe and sound infrastructure for not only our current citizens, but for the generations that are going to come after me. I think I've already covered, we have $35 million in unfunded street and road repairs. And you can just see some of the potholes. And I'll tell you, it's interesting, people will call and say, well, my neighborhood, I live in Shoreview, and I bet that people who live in San Mateo Park don't have failed streets. And I'm like, oh yes, they do. There is no discrimination when it comes to street repairs. We have neighborhoods in San Mateo Park and the Aragon that are failed. And the thing is, we don't fix them. We're spending, this council is allocating an additional $2 million a year for street repairs, but that's just to maintain the ones we have so they don't fail. We don't have money to fix the failed streets. So hopefully Measure S is going to allow us to have that money. And one of the reasons for doing it over 30 years is that this is going to allow us to bond against that money so we can start doing the repairs for our failed streets. So we can start putting money into senior services. We can start putting money into programs to up our public safety and our emergency response times. Now, certainly we're not going to bond for all 35 million in the streets because no one could go anywhere in San Mateo if we did all the work at one time. But we have a plan for the next 10 years to get every failed street taken care of in San Mateo. And then the maintenance, like I said, it's 6 times more costly to repair a failed street. So then we'll start maintaining those streets. So again, Measure S simply extends the 0.25% tax that's in place now. People are used to paying that right now, so our hope is that the citizens will see that this really is important. And to keep in mind that if we have a catastrophic failure with our levees or our pump stations, that could cost the city of San Mateo millions and millions of dollars and put us in debt for a long time. Is that my 10-minute signal? I'm almost done. So that's good. Last night I was talking and this man's phone went off with this beep and it was like, oh, is that my cue to stop? And he's like, oh no, I'm so sorry. And then our city manager was talking and his beep went off again. So we got a good laugh out of that. Anyway, at the end of the day, this is really the decision of our community. We're bringing it to our voters to say, you've told us these are the services you want. Do we have your support to get the money we need so that we can do these repairs? Public safety, I'll tell you, is the #1 thing that we hear consistently, even in surveys with our community. Do you want that to happen? We will do these things, but we're going to need your support and understanding in order to get there. So I hope you will give it careful consideration. I thank you again for letting me come here today and to talk about this really exhilarating topic early in the morning. So thank you so much.
Question.
Yes, Dick.
I live in Foster City. Why do we have a separate police and fire department? Why aren't they combined?
Well, now, San Mateo, Foster City, and Belmont are combined for police, fire. We do have a fire department we share services. So I'm really proud that we've been able to make that happen. It makes good sense. Especially when you're talking at the administration level, you don't need several chiefs. You don't need, we have one chief,
Right.
we have captains underneath. I don't know, we've looked at police, but I think that's something that cities have to really give serious thought to. I mean, keep in mind, in San Mateo, there's over 17 cities, and that's a lot for a county our size. Most places might have 5 or 6 cities. So I think in the future, it might be in the best interest of the county as a whole to start looking at combining some cities where it makes sense, but I don't think the city councils in a lot of these cities are ready to go there yet. So I think sharing services is the way of the future. It makes good sense. Especially when you have small cities, where do you really need to be paying 200 and something thousand a year or 175,000 a year for a chief when you could have one and then spread out the responsibilities. So we haven't had those discussions yet, just with fire. Any other questions? Yes.
What will that, this is a quarter cent,
Yes, it is.
and what would that bring the effective sales tax rate for in San Antonio?
Still 9.25.
It stays the same as it is right now.
Which is?
9.25.
Thank you. 9.25. Yes.
So, quick question. Similar to Measure A, there's a lot of transparency on how the county spends that $80 million. Regarding Measure S, will there be that same transparency of how you spend the $5 million and where it
Yes,
goes?
in fact, I think I forgot to show, well, there is a slide. We're going to have a Citizens Oversight Committee.
Okay.
So that will be representatives from, the community homeowner associations, all, to make sure that we are actually spending the money we say we're going to spend it. And we're doing that deliberately because people always are very suspicious about where's the money going to go and how it's going to be spent. And when you do a general tax, you can't itemize exactly what you have to have some money go for services, some money can go for infrastructure. So we're giving the areas where we really feel the money will be spent, but there will be a Citizens Advisory Committee to make sure that we stay on track with the spirit of what our community wants and what we said we were going to do. Yes?
Is the cost that you were talking about for repairing or replacing the water pump, is that over the total course of
That
repairing?
$24 million is for the levee repairs and to replace the pump stations.
Okay, so it's all good. And is that, is there an estimated time frame on that?
Well, once we get the money, once Measure S is passed, then again, we can bond. And we are going to have the citizens of North Shoreview will have to do probably an assessment district. Like, I'm in an assessment district, so back in 2009, 2010, FEMA came in and suddenly put some 8,000 homes into a flood zone, and mine was one of them. And so, your insurance was just ridiculous, like $3,000 a year.
How about 5,000?
Some are 5. We have people in Shoreview right now paying 6,000, 7,000. It's really, really horrific what they're being charged. And so the 8,000 homes on the west side and a portion on the east side of 101 did an assessment district. So I now pay about $85 a year on my property taxes for the next 30, 40 years to stay out of. But now we're at risk now because Foster City, they didn't do their levee works.
No, that's not
appropriately.
nice. I live in Foster.
Well, I'm sorry. Foster City has a problem with their levy. FEMA has come in and said, you better fix these or homes are going back into the flood zone. Those include a lot of the San Mateo homes, such as mine. Because if Foster City's levies fail, it doesn't matter, we've fixed ours. So that's one of those areas. It was really interesting. When San Mateo was doing our levies, we went to Foster City and said, you want to collaborate with us? And they said, our levies are fine. You're on your own. So basically, we did the assessment, and then the city came up with some of the funds to do the rest of it. So we did most of our levies, but there wasn't, the levies in North Shoreview, the work was so much more significant that they couldn't get the ones in the 8,000 homes to participate in that. So it's going to be a shared thing. We are looking to work with the federal government. We're hoping we might be able to get some U.S. Army Corps of Engineers funding. We just don't know. That's unlikely, but because most of the money they give is to places where there's significant travel on, in the area on the waterways, and, San Mateo, we have the coastline, but we're not like Louisiana, where New Orleans had to get money from the federal government because of all the traffic with boats and all, and commerce on the river. So I don't know if that'll happen.
I think we need to recognize that FEMA, according to news reports earlier this year, FEMA revised all of their designations and expanded the flood zone areas.
I think sea level rise is
We're dealing with our wonderful
influencing
leaders
that.
on the East Coast.
Oh, yeah, it's really difficult because FEMA kind of we have no control. They just come in, they change the maps, and boom, suddenly people are stuck with these outrageous insurance prices. And what really troubles me is there's so many seniors that also get caught up in that, who are on fixed incomes, and it's, suddenly get this bill that says now it's going to cost you $5,000, $6,000 a year because you've just been put into a flood zone and the costs are going up. So we have been working with FEMA. They are giving us a little bit of leeway in working with foster cities so that San Mateo and Foster City won't be struck with getting put into having to get the insurance right now. But it depends. They're watching to see how quickly Foster City can get up to speed, get the money to get their levies going. And so it's a temporary thing, but we'll continue to work with our Congresswoman Jackie Spears helping us work with FEMA on this. So.
Will Governor Brown help now that he has stolen all of your health funds?
Oh, don't get me started on our redevelopment.
Can you count on him?
No, I don't think so. I think we save taking money from the cities. I mean, our redevelopment money, I don't know if many of you know what happened. We had redevelopment money that we could use for affordable housing. Some of the best projects in San Mateo came out of redevelopment money. And because the state needed to balance their budgets, they took that money from us. So now, we're faced with an affordability crisis. We don't have money to be able to build more affordable housing or even to assist people. So it's a sore spot for most city councils, all city councils in the county and in the state. So, yes.
Just backing up to the flood insurance, I read an article recently that a lot of people, a high percentage of people are canceling their policies because they're assuming because we're in a drought, it's not necessary. I thought that this was a required thing. That was surprising.
If your house is paid off and you don't have a mortgage, you could opt out of having flood insurance. But if you have a mortgage, any mortgage lender that's going to allow you to not have insurance, you're going to have it. So, but if we had the rains that they're talking about right now coming, and if our pump stations don't work properly, I mean, we've repaired them, but because they're old, you just don't know what could happen. People could end up having flooding simply because we don't have the capacity or the ability to handle all the water. And it comes from the hills and flows down to the shoreline. So, but people say, well, why should I pay for the flood zone? Why should I pay for the pump stations? I don't live there. That's Shoreview. Well, the water is coming from the west side and going down to that area. So it's pretty much San Mateo's problem as a whole, I believe. We should all care about what happens. We should all be concerned with the cost to the city if there is a catastrophic failure or a huge flood, so, and sea level rise.
Let's just take one more, Jerry.
Yes.
Yeah, Congressman Spears had one or more very informative programs about sea level rise. In the big picture, it's inevitable. It's going to be very significant sea level rise. It's going to affect San Mateo County to a very high degree. I wonder, we're talking about FEMA, we're talking about insurance, but the big picture, the water's rising, folks.
Right.
What contingency plan has the city conducted at this point?
Well, I can tell you that all the levees that we are repairing, we're building them in a way that we can continue to go up on them, because that's really one of the main things. We have to have the systems in place to deal with the water. There's concerns about underground water and salinization of water as the sea level rises. I think we need to build back and not build right to our shorelines anymore. We can't afford to do that. We need to protect some of our wetlands and all, but I think the main thing we're doing is making sure that as sea level goes up, so can our levees. So that's about all. I mean, sure, I don't know what else we can do in terms of we're not going to be able to stop this from happening. It's inevitable that it's occurring. And I don't see how, even if we work on climate control, which we should be, we're still going to see the sea level rising. So thank you so much.
Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate it.
A few last announcements before we